Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. This is your host Amina Ahmed, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. Welcome back to another episode of NextGen, where we speak about the issues we're facing in our world today, as well as the brilliant and brave young people who are addressing these problems head on. You're watching us on Galaxy 19 satellite, MuslimNetwork.tv, Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV, and Apple TV as well. Now, today on NextGen, we will be speaking about an issue that is prevalent, that is pressing, but many people, especially mainstream media, does not speak about it. 1 out of 4 Americans have a disability. That's about 26% of the American population. That's a large number. But again, disability and the stigmas that come around disability is not something that is addressed. But here on NextGen, in order to address disability, we have with us Maria Bangash, a 20-year-old Muslim girl with a physical disability from Toronto. She is passionate about advocating for people with disability, for young people. Her goal is to end the stigmas around disability and to encourage young people to put down those barriers that come with an ableist society. Maria, such an amazing honor to have you with us on our show today, and thank you for the work that you do.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I think, Maria, maybe some people will recognize you here from TikTok, from Twitter. I know that you're a very prevalent face there. But Maria, before we address kind of the particular stigmas, I want to talk about how is it like as a young person with a disability that has to face those stigmas in our community? What does that feel like for you?
Sure. So, I grew up in the city of Toronto. Toronto is robust, it's busy, it's tons of fun. We have it all here. We're a multicultural and diverse society. I guess you could essentially call us a melting pot. So,
Right.
I grew up in a first world country. I had access to healthcare, I had access to funding, resources, whatever it was, you name it. But I had materialistic access and I didn't have emotional access. So, making friends at school was always kind of tricky. I got picked on. I was bullied and I was called a lot of mean names. So, when I couldn't find homage in the Canadian society, I turned to my Muslim community. And I thought if I go to the masjid more, if I connect more, I will find homage and I will find where my home is. But to my surprise, my home wasn't there either. Masjids were not accessible. Children my age and older than me, and aunties and uncles would call me all kinds of names, make fun of me. They'd approach my mother and ask what's wrong with her. How much time does she have left? Is she going to be okay when she gets older? All these pre-assumptions, pre-notions, and pre-biases about me when I haven't even opened my mouth. I haven't said a word. All I've said is Assalamu alaikum, Eid Mubarak, Jummah Mubarak, that's all. And from there, they think I'm some rabid nutcase that needs tons and tons of help. These stigmas severely affected me growing up and really hindered my confidence. Today, I speak to you with confidence and iman in my heart. But as a child, none of that was there. I couldn't look anybody in the eye. I couldn't voice my opinions. And I didn't want anybody to see me. It was a tough, tough time growing up.
Maria, that's really disheartening, honestly, to hear that, you didn't find that comfort from the world around you. So you looked into your own community, the Muslim community, you connected more with your deen. But then again, right, you were shut down from a community that you believed you could trust. But, what I want to ask you is why do you think then is it so important for people like yourself and allies of your community to advocate against these stigmas?
It would improve the quality of my life. I wouldn't have to go around thinking, do people actually want to be my friend or do they just pity me? Or I wouldn't have to go thinking, am I actually going to get this job or am I really screwed? Education is so important. We educate our surroundings about racism, we educate our surroundings about sexism, and we often leave out ableism, and it's super problematic. As Muslims, our duty is to serve justice, and as Muslims, it's our duty to protect the most vulnerable. So it always baffles me why our own community is the one who pushes me down the most.
Now, Maria, many people say that speaking on the issue of disability might be difficult for them. What do you think they can do to overcome that, and so we can create an environment where it's not something that's so taboo to speak about?
What pushed me to speak about disability was connecting to my deen. I grew up in a traditional Canadian high school. There weren't that many Muslim kids. I didn't care too much about my religion, and that was the reality of growing up in a Western society. Connecting to my religion really helped me realize that This is the way that I am, and Allah is not going to change me. And that's okay. I always say alhamdulillah because my situation could be way worse. Today, I'm breathing through my lungs and I'm speaking to you in my house on a laptop with Wi Fi connection. I've had food to eat, I've had water to drink. These seem like small things, but they're such big deals nowadays. Having access to our basic needs and rights is a huge deal. Connecting with my dean really made me realize that I have so much to be grateful for. So much. At least I'm able to speak. I can articulate my own thoughts. Tomorrow, when my parents aren't here, I will be able to advocate for myself to have myself taken care of. Some people with disabilities won't be able to do that. Loving myself came from loving my dean and loving my creator. When I started loving Allah and loving what He gave me, it gave me the push to love myself and hopefully inspire change for other people to love themselves too.
That's so inspiring, Maria. I think that you took a lot of the negativity that was thrown at you by your community, and you're using your voice to not only educate that community, but to kind of push down those barriers that exist from our own community. I think that's a very beautiful thing that you're doing. But I know that it must have been difficult. There must have been, people that might not support your cause. And, I was saying, I see you on TikTok and I see just on social media online how cruel people can be, and you said that you faced that in real life. Tell us about some of those pushbacks that you faced.
I think the biggest pushback for me was when I was 18 and I finally graduated high school. I was on my way to post secondary, and I have a nurse or a personal support worker that will come and support me throughout the day with my minor tasks and whatever as I'm in school. And for about a month, I didn't have any support. I was all by myself. I had to keep asking my friends to help me out. And my friends are amazing. Alhamdulillah, I have some of the most amazing friends. They'd always help me, but that's not their job. I can't keep pulling my friends out of class to help me get ready for my class. It's just not fair. So I hit my breaking point when that happened, and I was just so stressed and upset. And I got into multiple fights with people at government levels in Toronto. I got in fights with people who own the nursing agencies, tip top management, whatever it was. I wasn't afraid to use my voice and make people understand that I deserve a life of access. You say Canada is an accessible country. You say Canada is a place for all. But never did I not feel Canadian and welcomed in that moment. In that moment, I felt like I don't belong here. I'm not Canadian. I don't belong in Canada. Where do I belong?
Maria, that's powerful, right? We have a community, we have governments that say that they are accessible for all people, but when we look at the reality, that's just not being served. But why do you think it is that people from the disabled community tend to be overlooked so much? Why is that so?
I feel like because we're the most patient community. Whenever on Twitter, when I make a post about something like, oh, this is ableist or this is not right, I find myself always following up with an apology. I'm like, I don't mean to come off as aggressive. I don't mean to come off as annoying, but this is really hard. This is really difficult, and this is really breaking my heart. And anytime I push for some change, someone will say, well, Maria, why can't you just deal with it? Why can't you be grateful? Why can't you find a way around it? How come I have to find a way around my life? That's so difficult. I shouldn't have to find a way to work around getting access to something. And it's really disheartening when people in power, people in government positions tell me that, well, one day it'll be accessible. Well, which day? Will I live to see it? Will anyone live to see it? How can you put a time limit on my life and my accessibility? If accessibility impacted the entire population, like it is now with COVID, and everyone has accessible options, the whole world would stop, right? But because it affects a minority, and just like with anything with minorities, it's overlooked and overshadowed. And I'm often put on the back burner when it comes to planning and designing a lifestyle.
No, Maria, you said that people's responses will be like, deal with it, be patient, get over it. I feel like that in itself is ableist. Are these type of comments that you receive a lot?
Oh, 100%, especially when I'm advocating here in the city of Toronto. Like I've had to speak with nursing agencies or suppliers to get access to medical care, at-home service care or transportation. The biggest thing for me is transportation. When I call to get an accessible taxi, an accessible ride to go to the hospital, and I'm like, okay, my pickup time is like 10 a.m. I need to be there by 11:30, and then they'll come pick me up at 11 o'clock, and I get there by 12:30. And when I call the company and I complain, they're like, well, can't you just deal with it? It's free service. It's covered by the government. Why can't you just deal with it? Well, I mean, I don't have a helicopter to take me to my appointment. So, Like, why are you asking me to deal with inaccessibility? If your Uber showed up half an hour late, would Uber tell you to deal with it? No, Uber would give you a refund. They'd give you a discount. They'd give you a coupon. They'd give you something to compensate. So how come I have to just deal with it?
Maria, I think that, we're covering kind of the negative responses that you've received that I've seen, myself. I've seen you receive those type of feedback. But has there been any people that, come back to you with some positive energy, excited, encouraged, any of that as well?
Oh, of course. To every negative, there's always a positive. And for me, I always try my absolute best to look at the positive and leave the negative to another day or leave it completely. Ever since I started making content in September 2019, now we're in November 2020. It's been a year and a bit since I really fully found my confidence and found my voice. I'll never forget when I first hit about 2 or 3,000 followers on TikTok. I got a message from a young girl who was Pakistani and she had a disability too. She told me how my content changed her perspective on herself and how she wanted to be as confident as me. And I remember telling her back, you don't need to be as confident as me. You need to be yourself. You need to be confident in yourself and love yourself and make active changes to make your life better. Because we've learned the government won't support us. We've learned people in power won't support us. We've learned no money and no grants are going to support us except ourselves. So we have to support ourselves and own our place in this space and environment and make that active change. And anytime I get a message from young girls or anything like that, it really touches my heart.
Yeah, Maria, I think that it's very evident that you're inspiring to not just me, but so many people. And I hope that our viewers are listening to your story. And we'll continue to speak about stigma right after our short break. You're watching us on Galaxy 19 Satellite, MuslimNetwork.tv, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Apple TV as well. We'll be right back.
Billboards are popping up all over the country with an
Our neighbors don't realize that Muslims are absolutely opposed to ISIS.
Salam. My name is Abdul Malik Mujahid. I'm an imam in Chicago.
60 shots! No me! No justice! No me!
So how do we bring up the energy which can really have an impact on the world?
You need to build bridges of understanding among people, and we need to have America moving forward.
That lesson learned brought the strength of humanity to America, which is the diversity.
Mujahid Talks, only on Muslim Network TV. Faithfully connected.
Welcome back to NextGen. I'm here with Maria Bangash speaking on disability, the stigmas around it, as well as how our community addresses disability as well. Maria, I want to ask you, in your opinion, what is the correct way to go about addressing the stigma around disability? I know that you have been in this work for a long time. What have you seen in your experience?
I'd say the best way of addressing stigma and, going with it head on is listening. Listening to people with disabilities and understanding and acknowledging, what it is we need. If you don't listen to us, you won't know what we need. It's like, when a hijabi girl mentions that, she wants to be represented properly. None of this taking off my hijab for a white boy, none of that. We want to be represented and shown in the right way. When you speak to a person with a disability and you understand where they're coming from and what they need, and also acknowledging all of our needs can look different. Something I might need, person B doesn't need. Or something I believe in, maybe they don't, right? Our beliefs all stem from something different. So it's all about actively listening and actively learning and just being an echo to their voice.
I think that's really interesting that you said that literally all we need to do is be more empathetic. You're not asking for something radical, but just for people to be a bit more understanding and to listen to what your needs are, and that they can be different for each person, regardless of what their disability might be. But Maria, as a Muslim, right, as a young Muslim woman, you're 20 years old, you're in college right now. How has living with disability affected you personally and your family as well? Tell us a little bit about them.
So I think something that is very underrated is intersectionality, right? So on one end, people hate me because I have a disability. And on the other end, they hate me because I'm a Muslim. So on both ends of the stick, I receive discrimination and I receive a lot of grief. I'd say something that really affected my family and I growing up was medical discrimination. And this is something that we've talked about a lot nowadays in our society, is medical practitioners not taking BIPOC parents seriously. I remember so many times my mom told me when she was pregnant, she felt something was wrong. I wasn't moving around as a baby, and nobody took her seriously in the ER. Nobody took her seriously at all. And when I was born, I couldn't breathe whatsoever. I was born completely blue. My arms and legs were backwards, and they had no idea what was coming to them when I was born. Had the ambulance not to take me to the Sick Children's Hospital downtown Toronto not come on time, I probably wouldn't have made it. It was all a matter of time. And after I was born, suddenly every doctor in the room was apologizing to my parents. Like, we're so sorry. We had no idea this was going to happen. She was a healthy baby during the pregnancy and blah, 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 blah. Yes, okay, maybe back in 2000, the medical technology wasn't all that. But you can't tell me you miss my arms and legs being backwards in ultrasound. No. Sounds a little shaky. And even growing up in educational aspect, teachers put me in special ed without giving me any testing. I was unlawfully thrown into special ed because they assumed that because my parents were immigrants, that I didn't know English, that I didn't know how to do math or anything like that. And then when we forcefully did a psychological exam and I passed with flying colors, suddenly the apology started again, and they were like, we're so sorry. We had no idea. We thought that because of her physical disability, she didn't know how to do academic work. And that's stigma. That's assumption. You assume because I can't walk, I can't perform academically. But alhamdulillah, I'd say my grades are pretty good.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting that people, without even putting any of these exams in place or anything, they just assume things and make it think that you fit those assumptions when you really don't, right? Like you said, every person with a disability, every case is different, and people do need to be more understanding. But Maria, tell us more about, the Muslim community. I know that you talked about just outside the community can be very discriminating in Canada and Toronto as well, but the Muslim community, how has that looked like? Their responses to your work specifically.
I'm always super careful when I address my own community because I never ever want somebody to take this out of context that it's all Muslims, because everyone is waiting for me to say that narrative that my community is terrible and that we're this and we're that so I can backstab my people. But it's never that. Take what I say as personal experience and nothing more. In no way am I insinuating everyone in our community is terrible. I have been met with utmost love and support from youth online our age who are able-bodied and willing to be educated and willing to learn with me. I'd say it mostly comes from, unfortunately, our older generation. Now, I don't penalize them. They grew up in a different world than we did. Much, much different world than we did. It's oftentimes the rhetoric I get from people being like, oh, that poor thing. Or they'll come up to me and be like, I pray that you'll get better. And that's a very double-edged sword for me because I'm not denying the fact that Allah can do anything. If Allah wanted me to walk tomorrow, he could do that. That's out of the question. But if I sit there and I think about that all the time, what kind of life am I going to lead? If I don't accept the position I'm given and accept that this disability of mine is my test in this life, how I handle it, how I treat it, and how I deal with it. If I don't accept that, then what kind of life am I leading? Or oftentimes I get the whole like, are you still in school? Like, how are you managing school? Are you still in high school? Like, I'm 20 years old. High school ended for me 3 years ago, that's in the past. It's really disheartening to see, your own community hurt you. And all I can say is the way to fix it is education. Just listen, just learn, and you'll be so surprised from what you hear.
Yeah. And Maria, I want to hear about your work. I don't want to leave today before hearing about the work that you've done, because I know that there's plenty where that comes from, and I'm going to open it up to you. Tell us about the work that you do.
Sure. So alhamdulillah, I've done a lot of really cool things and a lot of really nice projects. So something I'm working on recently right now is my own personal podcast. It's called Disability, play on words. In this podcast, I aim, and I've only started it recently because of school, but I aim to share and storytell, me and my life as a Muslim girl with disability. I want to talk about the awkward moments at the masjid. I want to talk about that time that auntie came up to me and told me that my hair is too short. I want to talk about how masjid needs to be accessible. I want to talk about all those ins and outs and awkward things that happened to me. And, I've done a lot of work in the city of Toronto with multiple foundations, such as Holland-Bloor Kids Rehabilitation Hospital, with Canada's own CBC. I've done a show called You Can't Ask That, which streams in Canada. And I was the only Muslim girl on there, which was super cool. And I got to discuss my life growing up with a disability. I do a lot of work on Twitter and Instagram combating ableism and having open dialogue and discussion. And it's been so heartwarming to have people listen and learn and engage with me. And I only hope that, inshallah, I can keep growing.
Hopefully our audience can tune in to some of the amazing webinars and things of that sort that I know that you have in your podcast as well. I like that play on words. That is, I'm so excited to listen to that. Maria, what do you think those in our audience, those who hope to be allies, what can they do to address these stigmas? What can they do to make our masajid a more inviting place for all people? What is it that they can do? What steps can they take?
I'd say start small. Is the entrance accessible? Can someone with a wheelchair, with a walker, can they get in? Once they can get in, how can they listen? Are there ASL interpreters? Are there Qurans that have bigger fonts? Are there Braille Qurans available? If they need to use facilities like the washroom or get around the place, is that accessible? Some parents have children with multiple exceptionalities and disabilities. Is there a safe place where their children can, play and rest a little bit while they listen to the prayers and be involved? Oftentimes, Muslim parents who have children with disabilities are severely overlooked, and their needs are severely overlooked. And which is why I've taken that upon myself too. I've started working with a charity, Smile Canada, to push that out there and let people know parents have children with disabilities too, who need help and who need to get out there. So you start small and you build big, and you'll be so surprised with the changes that you can make.
And I want to bring back the thing that you said at the beginning. Lend an ear, be understanding of the demands, and they aren't asking for much, really. We're just asking for a world that is a bit more accessible for all people, like you said. Thank you so much, Maria, for being here with us today. Amazing to have you and hear your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you to our audience for tuning in and listening to Maria's story. I hope you guys can all take her advice and really just apply that. If you're a part of a masjid board, bring these concerns up to them. Tell them that we need to see changes. And like she said, start small in order to see bigger changes in the future. Thank you so much, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all.